hit, and they're about to hit.
Yep, they turned around for a split second because 8 Hellions are about to drive into the natural, and they too, of course, have a lot of potential, but a couple of them get stuck by a few Zerglings. Those are slow Zerglings, but they did a very good job in buying time. These Hellions should be able to kill some stuff, but obviously these Roaches have a lot of potential on the other side of the map. Nice little block there with the Spore Crawler, not quite the same effect as an Evolution Chamber. Hellions still looking for gold. I mean, I probably don't think that either of them expected this stuff, so it's not just Cham. The other turret is going to try to buy some time. So far, it is indeed only 3 SCVs, which is surprising because 2 SCVs were actually already on the wrong side of the wall. But it is not quite over yet.
He killed the command center. Then he just cancel.
Oh.
Yeah, that's pretty big, man. That was definitely a mistake from SpeCial. It was, I guess, microing at that exact moment, or I didn't see his camera, but that is a huge mistake. 400 minerals down the drain. That's already enough damage, and plus any more SCVs that come through here. I do wonder if you go with the Marines with maybe the SCVs, maybe even both, actually. Because the Banshee's not going to kill these things fast enough. And now the Orbital is under fire. Could actually be taken out. The thing's repairing it right now.
No, I don't think we can ever kill the Orbital, because I think that's what Juanito wanted him to believe, that he should go for the Orbital, and then he could just repair it at the absolute last second, and then the Banshees and the Ravens can make the difference. So in the end, it was 9 SCVs, Zombie Grub. What a great guess. But it was 9 SCVs and a command center straight up. So Cham definitely in a mighty fine spot, who did let one of those evil chambers finish up, by the way. That's now going to be a bit awkward in his... Actually, both of them. One in his natural, one in his main. But I think it's still all good, and he enjoys an 8 worker advantage against a 2 base Terran.
Exactly, 2 base. So that is the problem. If that third CC is still halfway done because he busted open a supply depot instead, very different scenario. It finishes up, turns into orbital, and, you know, although it is going to be a bigger worker difference soon, point is, it still would have been very much a catch-up game that SpeCial could still do. But now very committed on 2 bases. He's just going to go ahead and make this a 2 base all-in, which I don't know is actually going to work. I say that Roach is actually pretty good to have against this 2 base all-in. Just as long as you see it coming, I guess, is the most important thing. And Cham does not actually have that follow-up scout.
Yep, the Ravens are stuck there as well. Cham is going up to 4 bases. I want to say it could be a bit unnecessary, but of course it could be for Larva as well down the line. As long as we build nothing but units at this point, I want to say Cham should be pretty golden. Maybe he can sneak out a few more drones, but there's no need to get carried away and drop the infestation pit and go up to Hive or all that stuff. As long as Juanito's on 2 bases, let's just spam units and we should be fine.
I'm a little worried that he's actually going into Hydras already. Because this is a very much a, it's an army that you would be prepping for later on, something that needs protection or needs to be in larger numbers or needs to be turning into lurkers, right? So mass Hydra is kind of worse against Marine Tank than Roach Ravager, but also because it's more costly, right? You usually don't actually get enough. And you're losing Hydras as well right here. This is some nice attempts at harassment. Raven still being quite annoying. Gold base going to get completely cleaned up. Main base also under attack, even though the medevac was actually taken down with the help of that Spore Crawler. It's a lot of chaos, and Cham is still not maybe understanding exactly the situation, because again, he's not on the other side of the map.
He lost a couple of drones to the other turrets as well. Another other turret goes down. Okay, this is way more damage than I think Juanito was supposed to find there, because his army was actually smaller. Cham definitely had the right amount of units to deal with all of this. Imagine if he has those Hydras in the main near the Spore Crawler, then those Marines don't get a whole lot done. If he leaves 1 or 2 units in that mineral line at the third, then the other turret shouldn't be able to get that much done. He actually made life very hard on himself now as he's moving through the center. He knows where the army of SpeCial is, but he's just going to base race?
Oh, no, that's not going to work with Roach Hydra, I think. Like, I mean, it's difficult no matter what, right? But just my thought is that the Roach Hydra is not going to burst through enough. But then SpeCial's totally, completely caught by surprise as well. So, yeah. Ooh, barely getting that extra second with the supply depot wall. But more importantly, can he get a tank on that high ground? Maybe the Banshee could go back. This is going to get weird. It is a base trade.
Yep, and normally you would definitely favor the Terran here, because Roach Hydra is indeed not the dream. That one tank is going to get a couple of very juicy shots off, and the Roaches cannot get in range. Meanwhile, Marine Tank on the other side of the map is absolutely demolishing the defensive formers of Cham. I actually think even though Cham supply is off, I think Cham is losing the game.
I think so as well. I think at the end of the day, the one big problem, besides that tank actually being available on the high ground, which was instrumental to SpeCial's victory, was also that Roach Hydra and just Roach in general doesn't do well split up, right? It's got to be at that critical mass where the chance of like 12 Banelings kind of getting some good connections is higher in a faster paced game. So you really almost made it easier for the Terran as long as they kind of stayed cool, calm, and collected by splitting up your army and going for a base trade. So now SpeCial, I mean, it's still in an awkward spot. I don't want to say this is a super easy game to call because he lost his orbital, right? But his army is super good. It is down a bit in upgrades. And the medevacs are out of juice, actually, but 3 tanks still alive. It's going to be a lot to crack.
Going to be so hard to get on top of them, but a couple of Roaches are going to flank the tanks. I kind of wish that Cham would have brought those units back a little bit quicker from the other side of the map, but he does get the majority of the tanks. 1 tank remains, and just a couple of Marines are remaining. Now, SpeCial's also sending his reinforcements back to the other side of the map. Cham, what are we working with? At this point, 1 Roach, 2 Hydras, but he is firing up a couple of links, but he's got no link speed. So we are reinforcing with 16 slow Zerglings.
Oh, that is not a good sign. He still has more cash in the bank, but losing a couple of Hydras is not a great start. Of course, all of these units for Cham are going to be spilling forth from different directions, all getting picked up one by one as well. If he had everything together, I actually kind of believe in his ability to hold, but with everything coming in one at a time, and actually 0 anti-air at this point to kill this one really weak Banshee, I think SpeCial's going to do it. What is it about Latin America and Blackburn? Why is the game so weird? Why do they turn out like this? Why is SpeCial picking up from a drone surround? Because that's just the way that this region plays out.
Yeah, he's got a lot of extra units coming in, so he's just going to go back towards those. He knows that they picked up the Roach Warren, so it's not like Cham can really build anything at this point. Cham is going to try to build the Roach Warren number 3, but I do think that this is just not going to work anymore. Cham knows it, and Juanito, even though he went all the way down to 1 orbital and 8 SCVs, wins a 12-minute game on Blackburn that started many hours ago, and we kind of theorized about many ways that this could have played out. This was not one of them. But yeah, Juanito just said, all right, mate, like, let's go for it. You attack me, I attack you. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, that was not at all a prediction we made. It's just a crazy game, you know? Like, obviously, he picked up against the drone surround just to ensure his victory. It's weird that these games keep turning out like this. It's choices that most other people, I guess, would not make. I can't think of too many Roach Hydra players who, without like a real understanding of how the game has gone, you like maxed out 4 base to 4 base, would move out like that. You know, like the supply was not there to be kind of loosey-goosey. Again, I talked about how I maybe wasn't reading the situation correctly, and that certainly played a part, but it was a really risky decision for him to make more so than for SpeCial to make.
Yep, but obviously Juanito did a bit too much when he started attacking with the Ravens, the 1 medevac drop in the main base and the 2 medevacs in the top left. Like, if Cham just stays a little calmer and he has a couple of overloads well spread out and he kind of knows where they are, if he would have split his units up a little bit, he would have been okay, but he kind of took like the worst of the worst fights everywhere. It was like 4 Roaches against the 8 Marines in the main base. That didn't go too well. 3 Hydras and a Queen were fighting the 16 Marines in the top side, and then a lot of units were just in transit, bouncing between bases, reacting to stuff that by the time they would finally arrive at the destination, those units would be picked up again, or they would move elsewhere, or the other turret expired. It just, it wasn't quite it for Cham.
Right, exactly. That did start the, I guess, tough decisions had to be made after you took that much damage. So kind of in the flurry of StarCraft actions, he was like, okay, let's just go for it. Let's just try and do something. Ended up being the wrong move, although it was darn close. A couple of units return home faster. A couple of units popped out faster on the defense. That tank is on the high grounds. A lot of things could have changed the way it ended. But SpeCial does take game 1, and we move on to Hardwire.
Yeah, kudos to SpeCial, because that tank popped basically right when that Roach Hydra army showed up in the natural, and at first it was a rally towards the front, and then Juanito immediately realized his win condition. He's like, I think I have an unstoppable army on the other side of the map, but if he gets on top of my production, then it's not going to be good enough. So he pulls the tank back, sieges it up in a pretty safe spot, and then I love the body block of the SCVs. I mean, that truly was for king and country. A couple of SCVs did go down, but they kept all the Roaches at bay. If SCVs could scream, "This is Sparta," Zombie Grub, that was it.
If only they could, but it'd be in a country twang. So, this is Sparta? Like, not quite as intimidating, but same effect in game. So, I think we're just getting confirmation that Cham's also ready to go, and then we'll get into Hardwire. It's really weird to kind of visualize how the rest of the series is going to go. We kind of have Kellizer Eric in our brain that's messing up expectations, but then that first game being a base race too didn't really tell us, either way if Cham's really on point again or if SpeCial is going to dominate again. Like, that was too wacky to pull a lot of information out of.
Yeah, I do always feel, and this is something that I've definitely seen in some of the previous seasons of Latin America, that Cham plays very different in the playoffs than he does in the group stage. Like, in the group stage, I feel like he plays builds that maybe he enjoys and he feels somewhat comfortable with, but he's not convinced that that is the way to victory. And then when it's playoff time, I feel like he goes back to his roots, and that has always been the Roach. He's been a big Roach lover for a long time. So I do feel that we're going to see his A+ game when it comes at least to the strategy, but if the execution is really there, that I'm not sure about. As Kellizer also mentioned in the interview, Cham went AWOL for a bit, and yeah, that's perhaps the best way to put it, because I haven't seen a lot of Cham at all.
It's kind of nice to get the player confirmation on this. I mean, I know you're very in on the European players, but North America, kind of the Western Hemisphere side of the world, there's times where the players are on break, or when they're part-time, when they're full-time, when they're going to school, when they're just simply not focusing on StarCraft, and during the off season there's always a better chance of that too. So we kind of sit here in the beginning of a season, we're like, does Cham warmed up, is he experienced? And for Kellizer to be like, yeah, I kind of went AWOL, it can be a little confirmation that he probably took a little bit of a break. Not actually that uncommon for Cham either, who I think has had his ups and downs, and it has sometimes been around how much he is playing or starting.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is kind of sad, because I felt like 4 years ago, 2016, 2017, it was really like, holy hell, Cham arrived, the new Mexican Zerg player, and he's good, and he was taking down some of the biggest names in Europe at that point. And right now I have the feeling that he's pretty far away from that level. Like, I'm sure that he could qualify for the European DreamHack and he would be able to pick up a little victory here and there, but I wouldn't see him make a top 8 at Valencia, for instance, which is something he did a long time ago. But hey, maybe he will still level up throughout these playoffs and he can prove me wrong. In the top right side, though, we are looking at the main base of the man who has taken the 1-0 lead in his semi-finals en route to win this tournament 7 times in a row. It is SpeCial.
In the bottom left is the blue Zerg for Team GP. He is Cham.
I want to see him knight as Zombie Crow.
Huh. Would I like that? Would I like that?
You would.
I guess
like
maybe
that.
I would.
Yeah, absolutely would.
Okay. I mean, certainly some more fun games like that last one. Well, it went in SpeCial's favor, which, on the board is like, oh yeah, of course SpeCial's up 1. That last game was quite difficult to call. Nidus Storm might make similar effects, be another fun one, be another close one. But actually, if Cham is really feeling it, if he is going back to his roots, more standard, he's totally just let that yesterday out of his brain. He's just like, no, that was weird. I'm back to normal. I do actually like his backer game with roaches. I think he can be quite annoying to kill. It's basically what it gets down to. You keep thinking you're supposed to be able to kill this guy. Like, I got the firearm, I got the tank, let's kill the roaches. And then you just never quite do. And that was somewhat what was happening yesterday versus Kellizer. So, I don't know. He could go for cheese. It's always fun to watch it in StarCraft, but would not mind at all. One good macro game.
2 Zergs that I always thought were kind of similar in the way they played this matchup when they were at their best were Nemchar and Cham. Like, both love roaches, both love defensive play, while a lot of the other Zergs were always looking for run-bys, or at least some bailing run-bys, and focus a lot on link bane into whatever they may do. Like, Cham and Nemchar are playing Zerg almost like they're playing Proto Skytars or something, where they're just working on their vision, working on their macros, sitting on their side of the map, and they want to get the ultimate tier 3 army, and that's when they start feeling comfortable moving out, which is not really the way that most people play Zerg, but it is kind of cool that they have a very unique and identifying playstyle.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a little kind of clever thing going on here. It's not very committed, as we see SpeCial going for 3cc behind it, but it occasionally catches the Zerg off guard. It looks like, I don't know, actually, Cham might have just expected it because he's faced SpeCial before or seen him before, or maybe this is popular on the ladder, but maybe also saw kind of a little bit of the Marine pressure. But the bunker gets up, 3-4 Marines get in it. That is a lot for an early game Zerg to kill. So it's quite important that he's able to figure that out. Fortunately lost an Overlord, but
There's
it's not going
another.
to be a huge headache.
There is another Overlord though. Maybe one is not a huge headache, but 2 Overlords this early into the game. That is a little bit of a migraine if you ask me.
Yes. Looks like he'll be able to save it. Yeah, I think it's going to get to the high ground. Yeah.
Scan! We could scan!
Oh, I did it!
Certified migraine.
Yeah, certified migraine. There you go. Still able to get to the droning as he did add on another Overlord, perhaps in anticipation. He's actually good that he built 3 Overlords, not just 2. So the 3rd hatch gets up, his creep tumors are up. It's obviously a lot of, I mean, not exactly free damage for SpeCial, who changed up his build a little bit to do it, but it's just nice pickoffs. It's a nice way to throw the Zerg off.
I like the very fast medevac though, especially after killing 2 Overlords this early on. How on earth is Cham supposed to spot a medevac drop going into his main base? Especially because he doesn't have too many links. There are 3 links out at this point. They do have link speed. So if these links would go for a bit of an adventure, maybe they'll be able to see where those Hellions are. And maybe he will see those Hellions going into the medevac. The medevac is actually just carrying Marines now. So it could also just be straight up Hellion. Maybe a Marine drop in the main base and a big Hellion run by into the 3rd. I guess that's a pretty good play as well.
Yep, that seems to be what it is. There could even be a change of, where goes what, but it's going to be Marines in the main. And we have a follow-up battlecruiser build. I was a little confused. I thought SpeCial was still only on 1 gas, but he took the natural gas too. And I do think of someone who still brings out the 1 battlecruiser into bio, I definitely go back to SpeCial. SpeCial is a unique player that I think of a lot of weird builds with. Oh, that was a little feisty. A little feisty there.
Yep, the Marines are in the main base as well. They're not quite in range of anything important yet. At this point, it's all about the Hellions. Drones have already gone back to mining. Hellions get a couple of shots off. Not too many drones have gone down. Marines in the main base also not ultra successful. Did they pick up a queen there? It does seem like they killed 1 queen. So that is something for Juanita, but pretty good crisis management there by Cham. That could have gone a lot worse.
Do you think SpeCial's going to be going into mech? He has continued adding on Hellions, was the first indication, and then adding on all this gas at this point too. So I was going to say, it actually would kind of suck if he just gave away all of his Hellions, not because of the lack of defense of the 3rd, which is still important, just because it's usually the power of the battlecruiser and the Hellions that gets the damage done. Like 1 battlecruiser, there's enough queens to kill it. It's usually not a big deal. It's the fact that it kind of distracts and forces a lot of errors for the Zerg. So yeah, great that he's going back into Hellions. Great to see some mech play here on Hardwire, which I think can have
Hellions
some
into the
brutal
3rd
spots. And good, again, some attempted crisis management, but this time around the Lings are not here, so just plenty of time for the Hellions to roast drones.
There are only 14 links and they're still chasing that 1 medevac. The Hellions can even just get into the natural or can fight the links temporarily. There are 2 Zerglings left on the minimap, 0 Zerglings left on, not the minimap, on the entire map by default. I mean, it's just queens alone. It's only drones popping. That 1 Hellion is getting a couple of very good shots off. Now there is a BC into the main base still. 0 spore crawlers on the map, or at least not where they're supposed to be. It's a bit of a disaster for Cham, Zombie Grub.
It is a super big disaster. So there's a certain point. Okay, so first of all, Cham has not gotten any scouting on the side of the map. He had no idea that it was mech. He had no idea that more Hellions were on the way. He had no idea there was a battlecruiser. All of his thoughts were on stopping harassment. This is what has led to this catastrophe. Then second, he didn't... That's good evolution block. Yeah. So second, he thinks that the Hellions are going to do damage kind of no matter what. So he just makes more drones because there's always that weird thing that happens where you lose 20 and then you make 20 lings and you're like, well, I already took the damage. I have 20 lings. It's not useful. But it just keeps on snowballing is the downside to that kind of idea. More Hellions come in. Battlecruiser takes out a hatchery. It's too much of a catastrophe, man.
Yeah, this one is very, very over. Cham knows it. I mean, Cham's going to have a hard time killing the barracks in his main base. That is the state of the game at this point. We are 8 minutes into Hardwire, and the barracks is terrifying. A queen is off creep in the center of the map, so that queen is going to get picked up as well. Cham is going to try to go up to 4 bases one more time, but this BC right now could solo the army. There is a second BC that is about to teleport to the other side of the map, and honestly, there is nothing that Cham can do about it. I guess the Spire is almost done, but we have no money for Spire units.
He did not cancel his new hatchery, as he got distracted at the exact right time with those Hellions. He only has 4 queens, so a second battlecruiser might have done the trick, but the first one is injured, so it's not going to be the game end, but it's... kind of feels like it might as well be. The only benefit here for Cham is that he is facing mech, which has clearly not been a benefit so far. It caught him way by surprise. But the benefit of mech is that you do get about 4 minutes where you're not supposed to be under heavy attack. You're just supposed to be under harassment. So if you play like the most perfect game of StarCraft ever, sometimes you can bring it back. It would have to be quite the perfect game, though.
One more queen goes down. It would be lovely if Niall, our observer, could just show the vision of Cham real quick, just to show what you were talking about earlier, Zombie Grub. Cham has not been past the halfway point of Hardwire. That is just not a way to play ZVT in general. Of course, it has a little bit to do with the way that SpeCial has been playing. He's been in his phase. That initial Marine move out kind of tripped Cham up. Cham lost an Overlord, lost another Overlord, kept him busy. Then there were Hellions in his face, but I mean, at any point, you got to be able to sneak 1 or 2 links to the other side of the map just to get a slightly better idea of what you're dealing with. Cham has just been ultra blind.
Yeah, ultra blind. Which might have been okay against some other Terrans who do 99% of the time go into, Hellion Banshee or 3CC, Bio more specifically. But against SpeCial, you really don't know what he's following up with. That is absolutely one of SpeCial's strengths, is that he's got, good mechanics, but then also can just kind of be, whatever, pick something out of the bag. So Cham really needed to get more information to have an idea of what was going on. As I said, maybe that 4 minutes or about, minute and a half, 2 minutes into it now, you do get time to recover, but you kind of have to pick and choose what you're recovering, right? So first economy, absolutely first economy, but then do you go for a mass army? Do you try and tech up? And both options have their downsides.
I mean, if SpeCial doesn't just teleport away, but he fights, I don't think Cham has time to recover. Cham really has just no army. There are more BCs than Corruptors on the map at this point. There is 1 Transfuse going down. The Queens are helping out. Only 2 Queens remain on this map. Now we are down to a single Queen and 2 Corruptors. They're going to try to fight 3 battle cruisers. 1 more Yamato is available. Yamato cannon does go down. A couple of extra Corruptors did pop. Okay, he does jump away, and then I guess Cham does have a bit of time, but honestly, he would win that fight.
Yeah, I think he could have stayed around, but was a bit scared seeing Corruptors reinforcing. Not sure if it's going to be 5 or 10. So no reason necessarily to overstay his welcome. At the end of the day, SpeCial is still going to max out fast enough that Cham will not be prepared. It has not been a perfect 3 or 4 minutes here. He has had struggles. So Cham just going to have to buy even more time, which seems impossible. SpeCial's already across the halfway point, looking to break down some of these rocks, so maybe a couple of corrosive bows here, but that's a bad sign when the mech player confidently takes you unsieged.
Yep, with a lot of blue flame Hellions. I gotta say, those corrosive bows were good though. Juanito's probably aware of the fact that he shouldn't do that too many times. Maybe eventually has to take this army a little bit more serious. But let's not forget about all the supply that's still in battle cruisers. Yamato should be available again. There are 4 BCs, a 5th one is about to pop, and there are 7 Corruptors on the map.
That is a huge problem. There are a lot of problems in this game for Cham and very few solutions. SpeCial executing this one pretty much to perfection on his side. And Cham is finally forced to tap out. GG SpeCial 2-0 now.
I think he killed 50 drones exactly in this game, but all 50 of them were killed in like the first 7 or 8 minutes. Relentless aggression coming out of the Mexican Terran player. Really good multitasking with the Hellions. Cham did have that very cute save on the drones with the 3 Evos, but yeah, at that point, it didn't really matter because we already lost so many drones. These are just... If we want to cause the big upset here and we want to take down the king of the Latin American region, we're going to need clean starts and we're going to need some good scouting. Like, not making it past the halfway point is not a way to play against one of the best Terran players in the world, even including all the Korean Terrans.
Yep. And I think it all started with the Marines, even though the... direct damage was the loss of overlords and a little supply block maybe at one point. Really, the biggest thing was that they stopped any overlords from getting advanced scouting, maybe going across the map legitimately and parking themselves to see how many Hellions and where. And then you just never kind of get around to scouting again, especially if you think, I know what's going to happen. And then suddenly these very basic units, just part of a macro build, when you go mech is building Hellions, suddenly kill you. Battle cruisers as well, where we usually talk more so about their ability to harass, control a situation, and build up to a max out supply. No, those units killed Cham, so it doesn't feel too good as a Zerg.
Yeah, obviously Special's build is very cool because he was so annoying with just that one medevac and a couple of Marines, and he's going from that triangle location back into the main, back into the triangle. Cham actually moved the spore crawlers that he did have towards the outside of his main. He's like, all right, I've had enough of this medevac. I'm going to keep it at bay. And right on that moment, the PC jumps in and says, thank you very much. Now I can just fight a single queen, and I will already be on top of the drones again without a spore crawler shooting at me. So great play by Juanito, but we know Cham can do better. Cham has shown better many times in the past, but so far he's kind of getting bopped. There is no other way to put it.
He is, and this time, I mean, I'm kind of happy to say this time I don't think it's his own doing so much. I mean, clearly if you're getting destroyed in StarCraft, it's partially you're doing, but just it's not the same like for getting speed or getting overly supply blocked when not much is happening. Definitely more of a forced error thing, which is what we expect from SpeCial, but I'm glad to see that Cham isn't making himself his own worst enemy.
Yep. I know this as well whenever I'm playing and I'm like, all right, I know I'm playing against somebody really good. I really want to try my best. And you start with all the right intentions, but then 2.5, 3 minutes in, they already do one thing that most of your opponents don't do. And then you kind of like, okay, that's annoying. That shouldn't have happened. And in this case, that was the 3 Marines moving out, sniping that first Overlord. And while you're like kind of mentally wondering like, why did that happen? That shouldn't even have happened. I think that's bad. The second Overlord is getting attacked and you're like, my goodness. And suddenly your build is already kind of in shambles. And then you start overcompensating, right? You're like, all right, I know I'm going up against a very good player, somebody who's probably better than me. So I'm going to cut some corners. And while you're trying to cut those corners, it's just disaster after disaster that unfolds. And that is StarCraft 2 in a nutshell sometimes.
Yeah, you know, it's when I play and I see someone try hard, like if someone did that to me and they got both Overlords and whatever I'm playing, I would sit there and I'd be like, yeah, but you're gonna mess up later on. Like, okay, be as much of a Maru as you want right now, you're gonna mess up later on. Problem when you're facing someone who is better than you or someone just as good as SpeCial is that you can't really rely on that. You're not just gonna be like, oh, super cool 3 Marine special. Wow, well, you're gonna lose anyways. No, you're still pretty scared of SpeCial. So that ended up happening. Cham knows that he is up against a bit of a Titan, even though it is, I guess, it's not really David versus Goliath. It's a bigger David versus a smaller Goliath. It's still always a tough matchup for him.
I wanted to make a football reference, but I know you wouldn't get it at all, so it doesn't matter. Gonna move on.
Very true. Either footballs too, like both are a miss.
Alrighty, Curious Minds is going to be the third battleground for potentially the last game of the day. Oh, I hope for one more because the last 5 have been a little one-sided, but this one could be short and sweet because the boys are no longer in town in the top left side of Curious Minds, up 2-0, having a pretty flawless game too. Representing Storm Gaming, it is SpeCial.
In the bottom right, as the blue Zerg, he is Cham for Team GP.
You know what's really fun right now with the near future of our overlays that we can take a look at what Cham is looking at, so we can see if he has like a camera hotkey set up somewhere. This can actually really help pro players to get ready too, right, for future opponents, because you can actually kind of follow what somebody is looking at in the beginning of the game and where they are most likely not just going to rally their Overlord, but what they are checking for by default. So it's actually kind of cool and does give you some more information than you otherwise would have had.
That is very applicable to pros. Absolutely. I was also thinking about the addition of the vision of the players. I even looked at the mod for a second while we were waiting. This Overlord's going to see the T-Rex, by the way, so that's good news for Cham.
Yay!
As long as you save it, which you should. There's a high ground pillar right there. But anyways, I was just wondering who did it. You know, like who actually was behind the scenes saying let's do this and let's implement it, because that kind of seems difficult in the StarCraft community. Have a good idea and implement it. I'm glad they did it.
Couple of drones are already going to be on patrol there. Obviously, he scouted it a little bit too late to ever fight the barracks. Like those barracks are done, but it's still nice for Cham to have these drones here, so you can maybe prevent the first bunker from going down or get a couple of free hits up on the SCVs, because the first SCV is often a little bit ahead of the rest of the party. But that was a tiny bit mistimed. At least we're gonna get a spine down immediately, but will he be able to keep the spine up? I actually think if SpeCial is just shooting at that and uses the SCV, that spine crawler won't go up, Zombie Grub.
Yeah, I think he took 1 second to macro back at home or something. Because, yeah, absolutely, he should have been hitting the spine crawler. He's actually going into 2 Reapers immediately. I feel like this is the sign of someone who I wasn't necessarily planning on a whole lot of success, but in this case, I think it's just like a really brutal follow-up. The bunker is going to happen, the Marines are going to get in, and the Reapers will follow up, so the Lings are not going to find the successful hit on the reinforcements that they were hoping for.
Yep, and that is going to be awkward. Obviously, the Roach follow-up is going to be nice to eventually deal with that bunker, but I actually don't think Roaches will come out in time. We are going to have to fight this bunker one way or the other. Cham is going to build 4 more drones. But there's in no universe that you can just sacrifice this hatchery and be okay with that, right?
No, absolutely not. Gotta get the Roaches down there ASAP, and then Ravagers actually bust the bunker. It just doesn't seem like...
I don't know if it's in time. I really don't know if it's going to be in time. Another Marine is going to hop into the bunker, so the firepower is going to increase. There are 5 Roaches on the production tab, but obviously not all 5 Roaches are going to spawn at once. Grenade is going to go down. Juanito has to know that he can absolutely get this hatchery, but instead he's going to try to fight the Roach first. So he actually loses a bit of DPS there, because now that Roach is going to morph into a Ravager. Cham is going to send everything forward. Does he have energy for transfuse? I guess he kind of does, almost. He goes for an inject. That is a little bit ambitious, but it might just be good enough.
Yeah, there was a choice there. There absolutely was. SpeCial could have tried just targeting the hatchery 100% of the time. It would have very possibly been a painful, 20 health hatchery left over. Yeah, but...
that queen maybe
possible.
In the main base? Sorry.
Oh, that's dead. For sure. Oh, God. He's going to get the drones here, too. Obviously, the Roaches have already headed across the map. There is a bunker prepared to the natural, so they won't be doing very much. Still doesn't feel very good, even though Cham saved his natural hatchery.
I'm totally with you, especially with the Cyclone on the way. But even without the Cyclone, this bunker is not going to fall against just a couple of Roaches. That Reaper is finding a lot of success. Not only did it pick up a Queen, now it's just going to town on all these drones. 1 drone low HP goes down. And SpeCial is having the series here, or at least having the game of his life when it comes to, I'm having a good time. Sure, I could have killed the hatch, but what's the fun in that?
Right? Yeah, what's the fun in that? It's a beautiful game for SpeCial, even though supply doesn't look like it. It's just because Roaches are inflating it. This is a terrible position for a Zerg player. Not yet on the 3rd base. Apparently blocked off their 3rd base. While SpeCial finishes his own 3rd CC. Was never interrupted in his process to getting to a natural and building his own workers. Okay, that's a miss. That was a freebie there, but oh well. It's still not a good game, as I guess SpeCial was a little preoccupied trying to make sure there wasn't just suddenly a bunch of Roaches headed across the map.
Why do I feel like he's gonna fly the barracks into the main, land it, build 2 Marines, and kill a few more drones?
I mean, because it's fun.
That would have been really fun. Cham is firing up a lot of links in the face of the game where normally you would not fire up a lot of links. Link speed is only halfway done, so this is very early. That just gives me the idea, Zombie Grub, that Cham is kind of done with this series, and he's like, this is it, the Hail Mary play, but he actually gets scouted by the barracks. I mean, you can't really make this up, or what are these links? Are these map patrol links, safety links, worried about Hellions kind of links? I have no idea.
It's really weird. I do think that was a decision, another decision. Okay, whatever. Like, kind of weird process, as going back into drones is probably the better move. I don't believe he's going to break that natural base. There will be 3 bunkers, a Cyclone that can be microed, and a tank going to pop in 10 seconds here. There's no wall in the main, which is the only problem, but that's only if the natural falls, which it will not.
SpeCial and Kalazur just having a very good showing today. SpeCial was definitely in a bit of trouble in game 1, and we thought we had a real series on our hand, and that was absolutely a game that I think Cham was supposed to win, and if he would split up his units a bit better, I think he would have won it. Game 2, Juanito was like, yeah, they're not always going to be that close, and game 3, even though the 2-Rex wasn't necessarily game ending, and like you said, the supplies may not look that bad, this honestly feels like a mission impossible to me. Like, I don't even know what to be hopeful for here for Cham. Or I don't even know what to say, like, oh, I wish he would do X, Y, or Z. Like, what do? We spread creep, get 1-1 upgrades, and just max out on Roach Ravager and pray?
Yes. I think it's exactly what you do. You might even add in some Funkles there. And I think he could have been much faster to it. Still not fast enough, but faster to it if he had not decided to kind of straddle the line between attacking and defending and macroing, right? He had just kind of taken the risk of going pure drones. But it is what it is. It's a hard game to read, especially when you do feel like you're behind. Do not lose the Ravagers. And then now you're hoping for a maxed out Roach Ravager, and SpeCial being very overconfident. A Ravager did end up going down. SpeCial Probably just grinning while he runs his Marines away.
That wasn't too bad by Cham. Like losing one Ravager was almost inevitable if Juanito really wanted it. But I think the movement on the roaches was pretty good. He was able to get quite a few shots off. I was wondering, I was like, do we have the resources? Do we find an opportunity to sneak in a Baneling nest and then just get a couple of speed banes as well? And Cham seems to think that that is his best way to make some magic happen. It's very ambitious because he's obviously not being rich. Banelings are always good against Terran players. They make a lot of Marines, but you kind of need a strong economy for it as a Zerg. Cham doesn't have it, but he still feels that that's his best way to possibly win this game. And yeah, I don't hate it. I guess it's an attempt, right?
Yes, I think, again, Baneling's a little more volatile, a little harder to read exactly how the situation's going to go. So it does add that first fear to the Terran. They really have to take the creep seriously. They can't just size up and attack like this and go, yeah, I'm going to win. They have to go away from the Banelings, which this actually is being sized up. Probably good for Cham. They can't run into the tanks, of course, but he was able to tango with the Marines in a decent fashion.
Yeah, the dance with the Marines was good. That one tank shot that landed on 7 roaches at once. I was like, all right, wrong neighborhood. Time to go home packing real quick. Juanito obviously realizing that he's in a magnificent spot, and he's done such a good job in keeping creep away from the center as well. A lot of Terran players will tell you that it is hard to keep the creep contained on maps like Curious Minds and Berlingrad 2, but Juanito is making it look relatively easy. And if the big fights will start taking place, it's going to be on the edge of creep or even completely off creep. It's just a bit of a nightmare for Cham.
Cham is getting to a workable position, as in he could win a fight. You know, if SpeCial does mess up, SpeCial could lose a fight, kind of lose some momentum, and then be forced to play a longer game, which then opens up more opportunities for Cham to come back. Cham is still missing the actual comeback battle. He is just currently trying to deal his with the drops as best to his ability while spreading as much creep as possible. SpeCial's all over it, of course, and continuing to build his tank count. 6 tanks soon to be available. A couple of Liberators, too, for some harassment. Cham's actually going to gun it without Banelings and this Roach Ravager, and he's going to catch the tanks a little less guarded than they would be, right? If the drops are with them, but it looks like it'll be good enough for SpeCial.
Yeah, there is a safety tank in the natural. There are a couple of Marines waiting on the high ground. I don't hate the fact that Cham thought maybe I should just go ahead and go for it, because SpeCial actually had a lot of supply on the other side of the map, so perhaps this was his best opportunity to actually reset the tank count and get somewhat of a decent trade. And he did, but yeah, that doesn't make the problem at home disappear, because those units have gone to town, and that lair is actually very low on HP, so that's also something to be very wary of.
The Spork roll in the natural. 2 Ravagers will not kill the Liberator. Actually, those kills an Overlord. Oh, and the Queen didn't get the last shot either, so very, very awkward. And SpeCial even finds maybe a couple of Ravagers. Not quite, not quite. But again, SpeCial, he might have lost a couple more units than he would have hoped, not really realizing that Cham was about to attack into him. He didn't lose any of his economy. Okay, tank reset's also kind of important in a match like this, sure, but it just... He's done a lot of damage on the other side. Cham being down 15 workers really is quite all in on this Roach Ravager idea. And, well, he does manage to build a lot of Ravagers, too. There's still hope. I am not without hope for Cham.
We had maybe +2 missile attacks and a couple of those infestors that you mentioned. I'd be with you, but at this point, the Marine is just so damn good. I want to believe, and I would really love to see one more game, because I do think we got a bit unlucky in this best of 5. We started it, we had a very long break, obviously inconvenient for everyone. But I think that this Terran army is just way, way, way more powerful than this Zerg army. Tanks are having the time of their life on the left side. The Marines still steaming forward. Even without the tanks, Juanito does not give a damn. He wants to make it into the grand finals, and he does.